Excuse me. What are you doing? We've used every known technique.
It's a curious word to use, eh, Keve?
Yeah.
Then an adverbial, Sigimenev, sealed, buried.
Excuse me. What are you doing?
It's not coffin. It's not door to heaven. Is Stargate.
Welcome to Against All Oddities, the podcast about three brothers coming to terms with the oddly true and the truthfully odd. Today we'll be talking about Project Stargate. No, not the 1994 classic sci-fi adventure starring Kurt Russell and James Spader, though we do recommend you watch that. Instead, we'll be discussing the secret program also called Stargate. This program was declassified by the CIA in 1995 after 17 years of doing some really interesting experiments with remote viewing and other psychic espionage. We talk about all sorts of things related to these topics. Tim reads our favorite remote viewing account from Stargate, and Chris shows off his impressive astral projection abilities in real time. So please, swallow the rest of your entheogens, climb into your sensory deprivation tank, and crank up the volume, because this is Against All Oddities.
Oh! Oh!
Whoa.
Oh! Hey-oh!
I came through the Stargate.
Oh!
Holy crap.
So you asked the question about what this episode will be on. We did do an episode called Remote Viewing.
Right, because we talked about ESP. I think
Yes, it was ESP, not remote
yeah.
viewing.
so. This would be remote viewing, but I also think I have an argument to make later that it's not remote viewing, it's astral projection.
Yes.
It involves specifically the declassified CIA files, which are amazing.
I love them. There's like such good reading. It's like fun reading for me.
They're so good. They're so good.
I gotta touch on that list in a second that I want to go over with Stargate, and if anything as a reminder to us for a follow-up, and maybe even have a small follow-up episode later to it, because it's so much we can't even research it. I mean, it is years and years
It's a lot.
and very documented. 100, it's like 12,000 PDFs, or how many? That's like the entire Stephen King's Dark Tower series in government form.
Yeah,
Probably
which is slower
same
reading than
pace.
Stephen King. It's a little slower. It's like a little slower.
And some of them are hard to read. There's a lot of pictures, though.
Yeah, I love the
it's-
pictures.
Everything is awesome about it. I love it. So
this
I'll go into the details. What do you guys want to start it off with, like what started this and what Project Stargate was? I'll tell you that it did start in 1978
Yep.
and continued to the into the early 90s. But Project Stargate at Fort Meade government program. But do you guys want to explain it
sure.
and then talk about why we're talking about this episode, and then Tim can tell the Mars part of it.
The Mars is my favorite one.
You had a bunch of stuff going on. There's actually a guy, and this is kind of getting into what I was going to talk about a little later, is Bob Monroe, who started kind of the whole remote viewing thing and astral projection or weird dream interpretation. Bob Monroe in like 1958, I think was his first book, and one in the 60s, like Journeys Out of the Body. And he formed the Monroe Institute, which is in Virginia. Dad knows where that is.
That's awesome.
And a lot of it almost is like analyzing sleep paralysis and other stuff. But at the same time, you had if you've seen Men Who Stare at Goats, you kind of get the idea of what it's like. And the CIA, they were desperate for knowledge on what the Russians are doing, and they're open to these new age ideas. Think about 60s, all this other stuff, and they're like, all right, is there anything to it? And there's some of the stuff like nailed it on the head. And at the time, satellite imagery wasn't that great. and this one remote viewer whose name I didn't write down because I'm pulling this story out of memory. One of them said, "Hey, the Russians are building the biggest nuclear submarine on ever to have been built. It's being built 20 miles off land, blah blah blah." And the intelligence guys were like, "Oh, this is a bullshit program. I told you that's impossible. Blah 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 blah." And then 6 months later, you see this giant canal forming, like
Yeah.
in Russia, and he saw exactly what it was and where it was on his own. Like he saw Russians remote viewing, whatever, like spying on the Russians. But what happened is they did all these other experiments, blah blah blah. Some of them are spooky, like the drawings behind you, like the one person project. We suck at this apparently because we tried it before. Like those grapes are kind of spot on behind your head. But we suck at it. But what they determined was when the satellite technology in the 90s got hyper advanced at that point, like you could think of the Harrison Ford movie, Patriot Games, right? Like zoom in and you can see the people. That's way more accurate than remote viewers and reliable. So if you have a satellite, you can spy on actual individual people at that point. All right, close the program down, which they did. And then about 3 years ago, they released all of the documents that they had on it, which is crazy.
And they're great reading material.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I gotta hold on to the talking for a minute and go over. I just want to list off.
Yeah.
And this is the list that I sent from some random Reddit dude that pulled out the more interesting things. And I'm only going to read about a quarter of them. The number one, which I'm downloading and the three of us are going to read, is a 98-page, the manual, the controlled remote viewing manual from the CIA was released.
It's so good.
F&A, yes. I can't believe that. I looked at some of it, but not all of it. It reads pretty much like every government spec I've bid on for stuff before, but I'm looking forward to it. They have analysis, study of paranormal phenomenon by means of experiment at the microscopic level.
Nice.
From the CIA. You have remote action experiment with the schizophrenic. You have analysis of brain waves in the Qigong function state. We talked about that a little bit, about that meditation practice. You have psychokinesis from the CIA remote EM sources. You have psychoweapons, bioelectrical weapons. That was an early 90s one they did. Several different briefings, effect of hypnosis on remote viewing. The study of different brain waves, and the Qigong meditation thing, which we need to look up. The infrasonic weapon. The human biofield is a combination of infrared, microwave, and electronic fields, or electrostatic fields. I didn't even understand it when I was reading it. All crazy. Or the experimental psychic probe of the planet Jupiter, like you said, from Ingo Swann.
Yeah, it was the Ingo Swann.
Yeah, you have different dossiers. They have information papers from the Monroe Institute, all kinds of stuff. And the Soviets were doing the same stuff at the same time. Everyone was nuts on it.
So not to jump into conspiracy too early and something as bizarre as this, but there were some theories that they created the Stargate project and all of these other sort of inquiries into the paranormal and psychokinesis and remote viewing, and they really put a legit effort into it, but they wanted the fact that they were doing that to leak, to get to other countries, so other countries are like, what's the US up to? And they're like, oh, they're into supernatural weaponized scrying and spying, so like just as a distraction, but they actually found some legitimate responses that they weren't expecting.
That is maybe an aspect, but the reason why they were even maybe spinning that tale was because the only reason why the Americans were kind of investing money and infrastructure into this was because the Russians were doing it. And they were like, well, if the Russians are doing it, we need to put $20 million towards this program too. And so they're like, well, if we're putting $20 million, that was a lot more money back then, towards this thing, that's a good psych ops that we could do. Like, we should should imply that we're putting way more money into that so that Russia doubles down too and invests their resources, you know.
Yeah,
So
and
it's all like a
okay,
cat and mouse game.
point proven to that fact was in the movie Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Kate Blanchett's character.
I've never heard of that movie.
Yeah, who did that one?
What is it? It sounds interesting. What's it about?
I don't want to ruin the plot.
It reminds
No
me of a
spoilers.
comic book I read as a kid. I don't.
No spoilers. Like, oh yeah, definitely not a UFO, and people are like, definitely a UFO, and the Air Force is like, yes, no one's gonna see the stealth bomber, you know, like, because think about if you saw the stealth bomber in the late 70s, you'd be like, WTF is that? You know,
I still would if I saw the stealth bomber fly by.
no,
my
it's crazy
side.
looking. Yeah, they do flyovers on football games, and you're kind of like,
What is that one?
although I gotta say, it's also pretty much like the weird Nazi wing planes. You know, that's probably another one of those designs off the Nazi engineers we stole and Russia stole.
And
it
they
during World
stole
War
it
II.
from occult images from like
Yeah.
hieroglyph in Mesopotamia or who knows. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's my favorite part of Indiana Jones too, is fighting the evil Nazis and getting these ancient occult artifacts back, or religious artifacts. It's so great.
yeah. I mean,
Ah.
that's what attracted me to it as like a kid, even.
And everybody, and my
Yeah, totally.
actually my orchestra teacher said why it's interesting, and this is in the early 90s or whatever. He was like, you know, or probably 1990-ish. He was like, look, the the reason Indiana Jones is so popular is because at this point science can explain everything, and
Mhm.
people love to have that sense of mystery and adventure, and something like, so you go back and you look at these unknown things in this adventure, and you put
Myth.
it in a
It's like the
exploring
human need
myths,
for myth.
and you're going back in time where it was at the beginning of this weird
myth.
technology boom or whatever, right? Like you go
Mhm.
back to the 30s, everything's still kind of new, and technology is just getting
Yeah.
you around the planet. So
Or like there was the concept that you could attain myth back then. Like, because it's not current, right? Like none of us were alive in the 1930s, and neither were our parents, and so that was the time period where maybe because it's close we can identify with it, but far enough away that we can
Our
also project
grandparents
onto
all
it.
4 of our grandparents were alive in the 30s.
Yeah, but not our parents.
Not our parents, but we have some. It's
There's like a connection.
But
to
I
it.
think that's appropriate too, because I think we're about as close to our grandparents as we can connect to the 30s. Like that, it's
Yeah.
distant, but it's like palpable.
I'm still drawn to myth because our world is only shrinking.
I think we need a word from our sponsor right now.
If by my life or death I can protect you, I will. You can have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my axe. And my paranormal insurance from Dorfview.com. For just a few bucks, I can protect us from all kinds of stuff, from the likes of ghosts and haints and spooks and who knows what lies up ahead. Just go to Dorfview.com and get you some. Orcs, trolls, wizards, enchantments, magic rings, and potions not included.
We're back from the commercials. Let's get back into this.
Yeah, but picture behind me is Bob Monroe, who died in 1995.
Who's Bob Monroe? Oh yeah, you told us.
He started the Monroe Institute. Boom, Monroe
There
Institute.
you go. Where in Virginia is the
Boom.
Monroe?
Boom.
I can
Institute?
tell that's in Virginia just looking at that one picture.
Yeah, it looks like it's near Charlottesville.
Yeah, it's I think it's in Lovingston, near Emily and Dennis's old house. Yeah, whatever, east of Lynchburg, west of Farmville, south of Charlottesville, Lovingston.
To get back to Stargate and the declassified CIA files, of which there's a million of them. Nate sent 3, all of which are very interesting. One was sort of like spying on some aliens.
That's the Jupiter one.
Yeah, the Jupiter one. The other one was the searching for the Ark of the Covenant, and my favorite
That's
one
awesome.
is the
Yeah, it's so cool.
Is the Mars one. So I was pulling it up, and this is going to be, I think Joseph McMoneagle was the one that did the Mars.
He seems like he's pretty good.
He seems pretty legit. Like he's pretty.
Both
Wait, is this the
Inigo Swan.
Joe
McMoneagle?
Joe McMoneagle?
Yes.
Guess what? I think he's Dad's friend. Dad's friend, because Dad was talking about this guy he knew that was at Fort Meade and Project Stargate, and he's exactly Dad's age. And he
He
said
kind of looks like someone Dad would know. Too.
he looks like one of Dad's friends. And Dad said on his birthday they would he would have to guess what his present is, because everyone knew he was like a remote viewer, and they would wrap it up in like I
Weird
think
shapes,
Dennis or whatever took duct tape and wrapped it up a billion times and handed him this box, and he was like, "Oh, it's a new screwdriver or whatever," and it was a pocket knife, and it was.
Chris can answer this question in editing. Hey, Chris, you asked Dad if that's his friend. What is the answer?
Yes.
Yeah, he's also the guy, like, after he would remote view something, he would go to that area, because if he got it right, he needed to confirm
For himself.
And
Later worked for the FBI. He found missing children.
That's
yeah,
so
and
cool.
if time isn't linear, then you have to go to that area at some point to
he said
it.
he didn't know if that was why or not, right? But he did it anyway, just because he didn't
Just in
want to.
case.
Yeah, you don't
Just
want to
in
break
case
the cycle.
you don't want to
if it's
fuck it
working.
up. Yeah,
Like that's his
especially-
job. Yeah.
And it's FBI and CIA and important stuff happening. You got to do it, you know.
All right.
Plus, it's a good excuse on the government dime to be like, "Oh yeah, I think I need to go to Fiji for 2 weeks."
I need to
Remote view.
eat
I don't
their
think the
local
FBI
foods.
ever needed to remote view into Fiji. It's probably I need to go
there
to
might be a
downtown
kidnapper.
Tucson.
No, that's where they're
Picking up-
hiding.
Des Moines, Iowa.
All right, so picture him, 1988, a younger strapping adult. He's a cool guy that he can do that. So I'm gonna read the declassified thing, and then
At the CIA, this is at Fort Meade in
at
the
Fort
80s.
Meade
Yeah.
in some weird locked up room or something. It's two people.
No, yeah,
that-
not only was it a weird locked up room, but they had a meditation like chamber in the building that was like a foot like thick steel cube, so they could trap out
Like a
all-
Faraday cage.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what happened, and then I'm gonna read it.
Or
Okay.
he could speed it up at like 50 times.
Okay. So the situation is McMonagall is handed a sealed envelope coupled with geographic coordinates. So Nate was right about that. The sealed envelope was given to him immediately prior to the interview. And the envelope was not opened until after the interview. In the envelope was a 3x5 card with the following information: the planet Mars, time of interest approximately 1 million years BC. Selected geographic coordinates provided by the parties requested. The information were verbally given to the subject during the interview. And it's the geographic coordinates aren't exciting. They're 727-101, 604-908, stuff like that. So, plus 10 minutes, ready to start. It's government like script, so it's kind of weird to read.
It just so our listeners know, like, he doesn't know he's doing Mars. It is sealed in the envelope. He thinks he's looking for a target on Earth, which is extra confusing. Okay.
Yeah,
continue.
so
Really?
it is-
So he didn't
yeah.
open it up? Okay.
No, not
he
till
did
after.
not open it. He was told he has a place and a time, and it's in a sealed envelope. And so he's like holding a sealed envelope with the 3x5 card in it. And
Holy
so
shit.
this is
Oh,
him.
that is weird as shit. Oh my god.
I know. Okay, so here it is. All right, now, using the information in the envelope I've provided, exclusively focusing your attention now, using the information in the envelope, focus on 40.89 degrees north, 9.59 degrees west. And he says, I want to say it looks like, I don't know. It sort of looks, I got an oblique view of a pyramid or pyramid form. It's very high. It's kind of sitting in a large depressed area. It's yellowish, ochre colored. All right, moving to the time indicated in the envelope. I've provided you. Describe what's happening. I'm tracking severe clouds, more like dust storm. It's a geologic problem. Seems to be like, just a minute. I've got to iron this out. It's really weird. Just report your raw perceptions at this time. You're still early in the session. I'm looking at after effect of major geologic problem. Okay, go back to the time before the geologic problem. Total different. It's before there's no I don't know. Oh hell, it's like mountains of dirt appear then disappear. When you go before, see large flat surfaces, very smooth. angles, walls. They're really large, though. I mean, they're megalithic. All right, at this period in time, before the geologic activity, look around in and around this area and see if you can find any activity. I'm seeing, it's like a perception of a shadow of people, very tall, thin. It's only a shadow. It's as if they were there and they're not there anymore. Go back to a period of time where they are there. It's like I get a lot of static on the line and everything. It's breaking up all the time, very fragmenty places. Just report on the raw data. Don't try to put things together. Just report on the raw data. I just keep seeing very large people. They appear thin and tall, but they're very large, wearing some kind of strange clothes. All right, now holding this in time period. Holding in this time period, I want to move from your physical location to the space to another physical location. But in this time period, move now to 46.45 north, 353.22 east. Move in this time to 46.45 north, 353.22 east. Deep inside a cavern, not a cavern, more like canyon. I'm looking up up the sides of a steep wall that seemed to go on forever, and there's like a structure with it's like a wall with the canyon itself have been carved. Again, I'm getting a very large structures, no intricacies, huge sections of smooth stone. Do the structures have insides and outsides? Yes, they're it's like a rabbit warren, corners of rooms. They're really huge. I feel like I'm standing in one. It's just really huge. Perception is that the ceiling is very high, walls very wide. Plus real time plus 22 minutes. Yes, that would be correct. All right, I'd like to move now to another location nearby. All right, move from this point in time to 45.86 north, 354.1 east. They have appears to be at the end of a very large road, and there's a marker thing that's very large. Keep getting Washington Monument overlay. It's like an obelisk. All right, from this point, then let us move to another point. Move now to 35.26 north, 213.24 east. It's like I'm in the middle of a huge circular basin of the range mountains by almost all the way around. Very ragged mountains, very tall. Basins very, very, very large. Scale seems to be off or something. It's just very big. Everything's big. I understand the problem. Just continue. See just a right angle corner to something, but that's all. I don't see anything else. Okay, then let's move a little different place. Very close. Move from the point you are now, and this time to 34.6 north, 213.09 east. The cluster of squares up and down, it's like you want to make them square anyway. They're almost flush with the ground, and it's like they're connected. Something very white reflects light. What's your position of observation as you look at this thing that reflects light? I'm amid a bleak left angle. Sun is weird. Look back down at the ground now, and we're going to move just a little bit from this place. Just a little bit from this place. 34.57 north, 212.22 east. It's like I can just perceive like a radiating pattern of some kind. It's like some really strange intersecting kind of roads that are dug into valleys, where a road is just a little below the edge. Tell me about the shapes of these things. They're like real neat channels cut. They're very deep. It's like a road went down. Okay, now I notice electrically you're nulled out a little bit, and I want you to stay deep in the recapture of your focus here. It's really tough. It seems like it's just always very sporadic. I realize this. It's very important that you maintain your focus. I have a movement exercise again for you, and this is some considerable distance away. So holding the focus and time, remember the focus and time that you had before, and moving now to 15 degrees north, 198 degrees east. See the intersecting, whatever these are, aqueduct things, these rounded bottom carved channels like roadbeds. See pointed tops of something on the horizon. Even the horizon looks funny and weird. It's like a different, misty, like it's really far away, very vague. Okay, another movement now to 80 degrees south, 64 degrees east. See pyramids. Can't tell if overlay or not because they're different. Okay, do these pyramids have insides and outsides? Got both, and they're huge. It's really it's an interesting perception I'm getting. I think that he's losing his ability to move accurately, but he is attracted to things that are interesting. So we're going to go with his own. We're going to let him go ahead and explore what seems to be interesting to him rather than move the targets indicated here. It's filtered from storms or something. Say that again. They're like shelters from storms. These structures you're seeing, yes, they're designed for that. All right, go inside one of these and find some activity. Tell me about different chambers, but they're almost stripped of any kind of furnishings or anything. It's like a strictly functional place for sleeping, or that's not a good word. Hibernation, some form. I can't get a real raw input. Storms, savage storms, and sleeping through storms. Tell me about the ones who sleep through the storms. A very tall, again, very, very large people, but they're thin. They look thin because their height, and they dress like an, oh hell, it's like a real light silk, but it's not flowing type clothing. It's like cut to fit. Move close to one of them and ask them to tell you about themselves. They're ancient people. They're dying. It's past their time. It's past their age. Tell me about this. They're very philosophic about it. They're looking for a way to survive, and they just can't. Plus 40 minutes, definite voltage reversal. Can't seem to get their way out. They can't seem to find their way out. So they're hanging on while they look or wait for something to return, or something coming with the answer. What is it they're waiting for? There evidently was a group or a party of them that went to find a new place to live. It's like I'm getting all kinds of overwhelming input of the corruption of their environment. It's failing very rapidly, and this group went somewhere, like a long way, to find another place to live. What was the cause of the atmospheric disturbance or the environmental disturbance? I see a picture of a picture like oh hell, it's almost a warp. Oh god, this is difficult. It's like going, let's see, the raw data. Oh, I got a globe. It's like a globe that goes through a comet tail, or it's through a river or something, but it's all very cosmic. It's like space pictures. All right, now before you leave this individual, ask him if there's any way that ask him if he knows who you are, and is there any way you can help him in this present predicament. All right, I get is that they must just wait, doesn't know who I am, think he perceives I'm a hallucination or something. Okay, when the others left, these people are waiting. When the others left, how did they go? Get an impression of don't know what the hell it is. It looks like an inside of a larger boat, very rounded walls and shiny metal. Go along with them on their journey and find out where it is they go. Impression of a really crazy place with volcanoes and gas pockets and strange plants. Very volatile place. It's very much like going from the frying pan into the fire. Difference is there seems to be a lot of vegetation where the other place did not have it. And different kind of storm. All right, it's time to come back now to the sound of my voice and to present time. Right now, the 22nd of May, 1984. The sound of my voice. Move now back to the room, back to the sound of my voice, back further now to the sound of my voice on the 22nd of May, 1984. End of interview. So good. I have the skeptic side of me says that as if he was able to sort of perceive what was on the card without knowing it, he sort of, that's what he made up. That was his narrative that he made up, but he didn't know.
He didn't need to know. Well, that's the thing. If you said 1 million Mars BC, his imagination could come up with everything.
Right, but
so
I think,
is his technical thing. Here's what you're about to say. I think was he actually astral projecting to 1 million years ago on Mars, or was he reading the guy's thoughts that wrote the card down?
So same vein, but it's like he guessed the card. He guessed the card correctly, and he made up his story without knowing that he had guessed the card correctly.
If he was in Project Stargate, he was doing that shit that Chris had up on a screen with like where it says target, object, and one person was drawing and the other person was guessing, and there's like a foot of steel. Look at that grape shit. That is not a coincidence. Or the bird. What's the devil one? Holy shit. That's
I know. It's pretty good too. It's cut off in the image I found too. It's you can find it online. This is Uri Geller, and it was like how Uri Geller convinced the CIA to give him money or something. But you can find all these images online.
He was a mentalist, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If let's say you had a card that said Mars 1 million years ago, and then you described it, that might be what it, like, you could make up a story like that. But he didn't realize that the information he was making up a story. That's the skeptic side of me. Oh
my God. Does that mean Elon Musk is going to have to send Joe to Mars?
He wants to go.
He's still
Okay.
alive.
Okay. So
He
here's the
can
thing.
still go to Mars.
There was an interview there on the slate.com. Somebody found him and just called him. They got his contact information.
Joe?
Yeah.
Yes. And just started talking to him. They said he was weird at first, then realized that they were sort of a legit journalist and they had serious inquiries. And so he just talked to him and he was like, you know what, the only way to figure this out is to, go to Mars,
I gotta
knowing
go.
it's a one-way ticket. And he was like, I would go, sign me up. I'm 71 and my bones aren't getting any stronger. So yeah, send me. I'd do it. He already said
Oh.
he would do it.
That means he could, and we're getting close. He could
Getting
theoretically
closer.
do it if he wants to. And he's a weird enough celebrity where he's not a celebrity, but it's like, oh, what are you famous for? Oh, projecting for CIA. I could see that. And did you see Elon Musk's tweet yesterday?
No.
He said, I'm not saying UFOs are real, UFOs are real. Elon Musk said that on
Nice.
Twitter. What the fuck? Come on.
I mean, he's probably reading the same stuff we are, and he's like,
He
"Whoa."
probably is. And then
The only,
Okay.
the
I
only
know-
difference is instead of a $500 laptop, he's reading it on a $500,000 laptop, but it's the same articles.
But with that, I'm going to make a few connections here from Tim's story into kind of like the more recent stuff. So
Yeah,
everything we've
good.
been talking about with Project Stargate from the 70s and the 80s into the 90s. And guess what happened in the 90s? I watched the best episode 2 or something of X-Files. It has Jack Black is in it. He runs
Oh yeah, the lightning one.
the lightning one. I saw
Yeah,
that 2
It's,
nights ago.
Ribisi, Giovanni
Yes.
Ribisi. It's
Yes,
so
he's
good.
in it too. I watched it again. I was like, this is the best X-Files. I love the Monster of the Week or like thing.
Oh wait, that had that filter song on it, didn't it?
Yes.
Hey man, nice shot. Yes.
Yeah.
Over and over. I was like, how much did they pay for the rights for one episode of X-Files?
Well, they had to get their money's worth.
Oh yeah, they had it. Anyway, outside of that, like newer than the 90s, because this is kind of petering out.
Mhm.
Let's go into current news, and I sent you some articles on this stuff. So you have who's the Blink 182 guy, Tom DeLonge. I don't know.
I don't
Tom
know.
DeLonge. I don't
Well,
know,
no,
but he made the To the Stars Academy, and I think for a while Lou Elizondo, who's been on like every podcast in the world lately about the UAPs and UFOs and stuff. I gotta follow all these guys on either Reddit or whatever, just watching news because I loved like UFOs and stuff like that. But he kind of went off the deep end, and people are saying like you can also be the best CIA plant you can do for disinformation is to give somebody some information, and then that's true, and then everything else like total garbage, and then then it's completely
Well, yeah, I mean,
untrue.
because 10% of all like conspiracy theories are true. If there wasn't there wasn't a grain of truth in there, then
Yeah.
no one would. Same with religions or anything. There's got to be like a morsel. There's got to be one real thing in there that gets you hooked. It's like, no, it's real because.
Well, then you
that
come
one
up
thing,
with whatever.
and then you fill in all the rest with all your other
It-
stuff.
So I got to skip around between. I'll talk about Tom for a second, and then go into Lou and the next part.
Yeah.
So Tom's deep in thing and what he's been doing, and people have been distancing them from him, is he keeps talking about how depressing it is when you finally figure out the truth of what these beings are, not necessarily aliens in the UFOs, but something else. And this is going to tie back into Bob Monroe and some other stuff. This is my 15-minute theory I worked on before for this episode. So he's been reading like almost sci-fi stuff, some early guy, and I honestly I forgot to take that note of who was talking about this. A remote viewer kept saying he kept seeing beings or something like in the spiritual plane or whatever he's traveling around on, kind of like 11 in the show on the upside down
Stranger
world.
Things.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, which was like so. Yeah, we could talk about
Yeah.
that later.
That these entities and stuff, they can see you, they're almost like at a different frequency or wavelength or whatever, that we're living outside of whatever the next dimension up is, and these UFOs and crafts are coming and they're actually feeding on our experiences and watching us, and there's probably somebody standing behind you or some entity or whatever you would never know, and it's like depressing. He doesn't want to sleep at night, blah blah blah. And he's also gone crazy because, like there's a couple parts to this, and I'll come to my conclusion in a second. But so that's Tom. So he's convinced like there's these energy sucking things or whatever. There's a Star Trek Voyager episode where everyone's getting headaches and stuff, and no one knows why they're getting headaches. And all of a sudden, the robot or somebody shifts to like a red phase of light or something, and they see these different dimensional beings doing experiments on everybody and putting needles in their heads and stuff. But no one can actually see it or really interact directly with them because they're from another dimension and they're just kind of half phasing in to fuck with them.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
Which is awesome. Cool episode. They're like, everyone's like, get out of my office, I hate you, and all this stuff, because they have like two different scientists like prodding them and they don't realize it. And that's what Tom thinks is happening. It's interesting because you also have Lou Elizondo, who has a book coming out with some more quote unquote revelations. But I'll give Lou credit. Like he's been for a year, he's been doing, he actually worked for the UAP program a long time ago and quit in 2017, and he's been releasing a lot of the videos and stuff, but he also has a non-disclosure agreement, so he only does so much. But he was an interrogator for the military, and then later he went through and investigated the UAPs or UFOs, and now all of the research really is kind of because of what he was doing to try to get it out in the first place. But he said something like on some recent podcasts and stuff, they're like, well, can I expect to see a UFO if I look at the sky? And he's like, well, it depends on your state of mind. And he's saying, well, I don't know if they're really aliens, if that's what you would say is coming here. The thing is, and here's my interpretation of that. So everyone's depressing thing, and that was something with Jimmy Carter too, going back to stories, and this is urban legend, that because Jimmy Carter saw a UFO before he was president. He was all about, hey, I'm going to release any UFO files. And the urban legend is deal with the UFOs to Carter. And he got really depressed for like a couple weeks and then just kind of dropped it. Like he just wasn't happy about the answer. And I think that they keep going back to that. And now here's the difference. And here's my weird super theory about it. And that is like, so say there are interdimensional beings around you. Or say we're in a zoo of sorts that people can come in, or aliens or interdimensional things and come in and look at us. And you try to get to the mindset, you use the Qigong meditation or whatever to ask, oh my God, look at all these things, they're looking at me. And you get excited and they feed off emotion. And that's the theory, by the way, of the Loosh, Loosh, is like they're feeding off emotions of people being sad or scared or horrified or whatever. And my thing is, maybe they aren't. Maybe that's what your perception is. Like, say, if all of a sudden you're the TV show and you look out at the TV and you start looking around the living room at the people watching you and you're like, oh my God. And then all the people on the couch are like, oh my God. Like, this is crazy. Like, or like, say, if you're getting abducted or whatever, or your astral project and you like kind of fizz up on somewhere and you freak out, everyone's going to be like, what is this, what are you, blah blah blah. So maybe our perception is like, we go to the animal fear instinct that like, oh, these other beings or these entities or whatever are trying to feed off our negative emotions.
The state of the world right now, it could be like a million ETs. They're all like, friend, call home. And they'd come, and like some people would accept them and bring them in and like try to see if they could learn from them and communicate, and the other half would just start blowing them away from a distance, like pow 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 pow. I like
You ain't Jesus.
District 9. District 9 was a good example of that.
District 9 was pretty awesome.
Like some of them were like eating the aliens, trying to gain their powers and like getting sick from it. And the others were like, what are you doing? They're trying to like do social work and housing and get them money and like check on their general welfare. And they just became second-class citizens like pretty much immediately. The tall, thin, silk-robed alien steps off and walks out, and somebody's like, your alien money ain't no good here. Like,
That's an interesting kind of segue to my like kind of take on a lot of because I love these stories from Stargate and all of the ideas of remote viewing as well as astral travel, and I don't know what happened to me like over the last 10 years. I just don't care for scientific rationale behind any of it anymore. It's just too cool to like.
It's less interesting.
Yeah, and so and the way I like to think about it sometimes, which is it can be hypocritical because I'm like, well, I can just embrace multiple modes of like reality like really easily. It's like just a talent of mine. It's like this is reality, that is reality. They don't work together at all, and I can just compartmentalize them for different aspects of my life. But there's this like a really fun way to look at a lot of this remote viewing and astral projection, astral travel, is to think about kind of rejecting the Cartesian model of like mind and matter being separate. And like there's a really good quote that is, the mind is kind of a fundamental aspect of reality, and because of that, reality can be seen as an expression of consciousness. So like this idea that like, oh, did you really travel to Mars 1 million BC? And like when you're trying to physically and scientifically think about that, it doesn't compute, it doesn't work. But if you accept the idea that is also an author of reality, it like suddenly like it's connected. Like that event that transpired 1 million BC on Mars at this location is just as connected to his mind in a box in like rural Virginia in 1984. To me, that totally matches up, because that understanding of reality is no more or less complicated than the concept of protons and electrons and like space
also,
travel.
if you're looking at like the PK stuff, the psychokinetic stuff, like we thought with UFOs maybe 1 million years ago, the aliens on Mars that were tall and white with these massive, or tall and pale, whatever they were, they didn't exist. Now they do, because that guy just made
just
that
like
existence.
if we can
made that reality a thing.
As rational adults, we can kind of very easily accept multiple universe
So I was
theory. I can totally accept like the concept that reality is really a consensus. Like it's just something that we agree on, and I think it's way more malleable than we let it, if we want it to be.
You're making the loosh, Chris. That was on some of the, and that was like in some of the stuff I sent you guys last night. The one guy that was arguing it was like, consciousness isn't even there. It's just an awareness. That's all it is. And it's easy. Just go freaking sit there and think about it. In the once you're aware of it, everything disappears. Which is kind of like he's just saying to meditate. But 100% behind it, and the universal consciousness is kind of an interesting concept too.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
we could have a whole episode on the consciousness.
We should have an episode on consciousness.
It's just like, if the concept of like a multiple universe theory, where like if reality is created and born from my decision to do one thing or another, like reality splits because I decide to move to Quebec, or I'm just random. And like if consciousness can create a multiple universe, like remote viewing is like nothing. It's like all you're doing is connecting into a larger like network.
Well, yeah, like with the Mars thing, going back 1 million years, it's really easy to be a skeptic, and that is my gut response, is be like, well, he just sort of figured the part
change
out.
your gut response.
I mean, that's the initial one, but it's more fun to just sit there and just sort of digest it for a little bit and be like, why not?
Yeah.
Why?
It's your life will just be better if you would swallow these,
And the
these
whole
pills.
Yeah, the whole ESP astral projection. We have enough evidence to like of people like finding the submarine, or finding lost children or kidnapped people or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, air striking areas where they're finding them. That it is a thing. It is a skill or a talent, or there is some sort of availability in the universe to tap into that. Looking into spooky physics and quantum physics.
Also, I'd like to talk to you guys about the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. Tim, I've got 2 Mars bars, 3 Snickers, a Twix, and a Flake. Somehow, I'm just not cut out to be a bounty hunter. Hold on. Wait, I got another one. The best people to send to colonize Mars are economists. They enjoy housing bubbles. Wait, hold on. Where do you leave your spaceship if you visit Mars?
Hold on, let me try to think of a better response than what the answer is.
At a parking meteor.
Oh my god.
All right, Tim.
That was
Tim.
so much worse than I thought it could have ever been.
Tim, what's the best way to schedule a trip to Mars?
On your Bluetooth.
You plan it. I read a book about the relatively low gravity on Mars. I really couldn't put it down.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you on the same website I'm at?
No, I haven't. I got that
No,
one.
Tim is naturally
good
good at interpreting these, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Here's a game.
Okay.
Last time we did the ESP, the Star Square water game that was a lot of fun, and it was really fun to listen to. But here's what's going to happen.
Wait, Tim, guess what I just drew on the other side? I'm astral projecting.
A tree.
Yes, it's a butthole. I astral projected.
You did. You astral projected the star. No, but see, that's the thing. Last time we did the ESP, so this time I want to do the astral projection guessing game.
Okay.
So Nate, I know to astral project, you have to lay down and meditate and try to like get into it for probably like an hour. But Nate, no, put it down put it out of screen. But if somebody was on your ceiling, looking down, they'd be able to see what it is.
Like clearly.
Okay.
Clearly, just write a number down. And hold on, I'm gonna close my eyes. I'm gonna.
I wrote it down.
Well, hold on. Let me give me a minute to get over there. Because it takes.
If you're looking down at it, you should be able to see it.
All right,
I'm looking at the computer. Give me a second to get.
Give us a second. We're gonna go over there.
You better try hard.
I need to get into your room.
Don't steal my loosh.
Is it ready?
I'm drawing it over and over again. Project and look. I'll be quiet for 5 seconds.
Seven. Is it a 7?
Chris?
It's a 4?
Chris felt better than me.
I had to go there. You actually.
I was trying to picture Nate from above. Over top of his computer.
You have to go there. You have to like picture yourself going up and then very quickly flying over geographically the entire way.
Big buck hunter machine. Like focus on that.
No, I was. Yeah.
And then you actually like, and that's why it took me longer than you, because I'm coming from Louisiana. I had to fly up there. I actually went through Roanoke, even though there's a more direct flight, because I can physically.
It's like the movie. It's like.
Then I had to find the top of Nate's house, and I was looking for the roof, and then I came in through the roof where I thought he was, and I saw the port.
All right. So,
hey, what about that movie? It's like the movie Sleep.
Oh, the Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep.
Oh, I love
great
that.
movie.
Great astral projection in
that. Where she meditates and he just that was the best. Whoever was the art direction on that,
it is. I will say
win.
We were talking about like best astral projection in cinema, and I did actually think Insidious did a really good job. With some aspects of that, but the Dr. Sleep was really
they nailed
good.
it.
They really did a great
I like
job.
Dr. Sleep better than Insidious for that.
And I like the interaction too that they had with each other while projecting. You know, it was pretty. It was the whole thing was great, and also goes back to the whole loosh thing of taking like energy from people. They were doing that, and the that whole movie. That was the whole point.
So Nate, write down a number and don't show me or Chris.
Do you want me to eat it or take a picture of it with my phone?
You can take a picture of it, but the Riddler is what number is Nate writing down?
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
I gotta show it
Just
to
show
you.
us. I'll blur it out.
But
in the
you gotta
YouTube.
blur it out and then later do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Hectic.
We're putting it out into the universe. And
So just to finish that off, so if you know what the number is that Nate wrote down, it's you can email us at wizard@dorfyou.com. That's DORFYOU.com. Or you can tweet us at AAO Podcast. Can also text us or email, just make a voicemail, give an answer, whatever it is. What is that number? And you might get some cool
A prize.
swag.
A prize.
Yep, we got prizes. We got them ready to go. Tim, if you had to, we'll end in a different way. Instead of what did you learn, we'll end on a what if.
what if?
What if you had the expert ability to astral project? What would be the first place you would go to?
Where in the universe?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to East. Well, you go to sleep tonight. You're now an expert astral projector. What is the first place you go to?
I would go to Mars 1,000,000 years ago, plus 5 minutes. And I would astrally wait for that guy to talk to the aliens. And while he's talking to the aliens who think that he's a hallucination, I'd run up and kick him in the nards and then run away. What if you astral projected to Mars 1,000,000 years ago and you're approaching these dying beings and this dying alien looked over and was like, what is that small hallucinatory person talking? Whoa, he just got kicked in the nards. And then ran away. And then you're like, hey, other tall alien, you're not gonna believe what I just watched. The dude was asking questions and he looked really confused, totally got whacked in the narticles. That one disappeared. I don't know where he went, but there's two little things running around. We need to get off this planet.
Nate, where would you, same question, where would you astral project tonight?
Well, it's Tuesday, 10 to 11. I'd see what the lottery numbers are, I guess. But then I wouldn't be able to buy the tickets. I'd have to go like a week ahead and then remember to buy tickets for those lottery numbers.
Yeah, I think I would just astral project to 1,000,000 BC plus 6 minutes and hide and wait for it to come.
You'd
Four minutes. Go
Right
4
when
minutes.
Tim is about to
You
make
kicked him in the
nard contact, I would tackle him and I would just look at the guy and say, don't tell anyone.
No, that's like, so to the guy that was astral projecting, his story goes unchanged from his perspective, but the alien is watching this guy talk to him, and these two people
are like wrestling, trying to like
kicking each other in the nards behind them, trying to prevent the confused guy from getting narded.
Oh, poor alien.
Series of astral preventions.
Astral